Just a quick announcement for you Huntxpers. This will be the last episode before what we're calling Rutcation. So Jonny and I don't just talk about hunting. We actually like to hunt as well. So we're strategically going to pause after this episode until after Thanksgiving. We're going to focus on hunting that sweet month of November and give our attention to being out in the woods. Hopefully capture some cool experiences to share with you on a different form, but we'll be back at it after Thanksgiving. So sorry for the little pause after this one, but we're out in the woods just like you probably are. So enjoy some previous episodes. If you haven't listened to all of them, we got some great episodes in our library, and we'll be back at it after Thanksgiving.
Happy hunting.
There was an intersecting trail. She blew past it, and then she put on the brakes, came back sniffing, and went that way. And I looked over to my left, and I saw a deer leg sticking out behind some brush. And I went over, and there's this huge buck. And so I called out to my buddy. I'm like, hey, I need your help. I got something in my eye again. He's like, again? What is it you and get stuff in your eye? He's like, all right, I'll be there in a second. So I'm standing there, and he comes busting through the brush. And he's, where are you at? Over here. And he finally gets right there, and he sees the buck. You found it.
Welcome to the next episode of the Huntxp podcast. We got a good one tonight. This is cool. I don't know if you've ever shot a deer and you start tracking it and you're like, oh man, this went farther than I thought, or I didn't make the shot that I thought. Maybe you even have stopped tracking a deer because you lost blood and you thought to yourself, man, I wish I had a tracking dog. Well, today's episode is all about tracking. And we've got one of the founders of the TRAKR app on, which I think is an app that every hunter should have on their phone, whether they're hunting in their home range or they're traveling for hunt. I've used it twice. It's awesome. So we got Shane Simpson on, who's one of the founders, who I got to meet because he recovered my buddy's deer like 2 weeks ago. So we get into that story a little bit, and we learn a lot of fascinating things. Trackers are some of the most knowledgeable people in the hunting world because they have observed over and over again what deer do after the point of impact, after you shoot them, and can't necessarily recover them immediately. So it's going to be a fun one, a bit nerdy at points, but some great stories as well. So stay tuned for that. But Jonny, how you been, man? What's good?
Been doing good. Will give another plug for this episode as well. Things I picked up that I didn't know after spending a lifetime in the woods, just some of the nuances of how the tracking dog actually works. I always assumed, I know deer have different glands, the interdigital gland and all that stuff, but I was always going off the assumption too that like the deer needs to smell the blood and all this, but that's a very small part of it. And I was kind of fascinated by that. Another thing I'm going to say is Schwacker broadheads. They're rated really high,
Just
and the
going
data
to drop
data
that
helps.
right there.
Yeah, the data supports that.
Yeah, we get into some really interesting stuff about fixed versus mechanical, and people got strong opinions about that. We've got opinions about that. We've thrown them out here on the podcast. Not strong ones per se, but people get, they've got their broadhead that they love. And it's really interesting what the data is showing about recovery rates between mechanical and fixed blade. So we get into all that. First of all, though, sick hat you're wearing there, dude.
Yes, this is my Gone All Season hat. And if you remember, we had Cole Booth on the pod last season and struck up a relationship with him. Him and his buddies have their own channel called Gone All Season. And I now have my new fresh Gone All Season hat. And it almost paid off tonight. I told him we're going to kill a deer the first night I wear it. And my son almost did. We had a buck chasing a doe right by us to the brush. We couldn't get a shot off, but The hat was almost a good luck charm, so maybe next time.
Almost. All right, man. I got to show you this. We plugged this a little bit last time, but we picked up a new partner in Nested Treestands. We got some systems. I got to show you my system. I actually just got back out of the woods tonight with this thing that I used. But check this out. There it is.
Oh
I've
yeah.
got like all the way packed down. This is the 35-liter one. You can get a 15-liter one too, but it's sick, man. I've hunted with it a couple times now. Really like it. So it's got the hang and hunt situation, and then this is the equalizer that you can use. I use it with the tree saddle. Got the sticks integrated in it, and the pack's just the sweet thing. So yeah, man, it's been sick. I've had it out in the woods, taken it a couple times. I've got it like filled out with my camera arm, cameras in here. It's sweet. Fits great. It's been awesome. Yeah. You got yours all built. Have you had yours out yet?
Mine is built. It's sitting about 10 feet away from me. I have not taken it out in the woods yet. I will, I'm sure, when it's my turn to hunt, but I'm still trying to get my other son his buck. So,
It's not your
you know,
turn.
dad duties. You get it.
I get it 100%. Uh, first impressions, it's awesome. I love it. It's great. Best of both worlds.
Yeah. I do have a couple questions actually. So like mine packed. It was easy to put together. Directions I thought were super clear. How do the sticks work? I mean, that was my one thing. Like, did the sticks go up really easy for you? Like the ratchet system and everything?
Pretty easy, dude. Yeah. I something I learned is on the so just with reps, you kind of get what you're comfortable with. So I initially put the straps on my left hip on that pocket on the pack system. I actually switched it because it'll come with attachments, and there's like a little pouch that is designed for a water bottle actually. They actually work better in there because
Oh,
the other
okay.
one had a zipper, and once you're like halfway up a tree and you open the zipper, if you drop the strap, you're like, "Oh crap, I got to go all the way back down and get the strap because I need that." So, I would put them in the water bottle pouch to use.
Sure.
But it's pretty simple whipping those things around. It's like anything else, like the more limbs that there are on the tree, you know, the more annoying it is to switch between your lineman's rope and that sort of thing for safety
Yeah.
reasons, but they go up pretty good. Yeah.
Awesome. Can't wait to try it.
Yeah. It's pretty sick. They do. I probably will put some stealth tape on them because like the less things that you're clinking together in the morning
Right.
better.
Right.
That's pretty standard for all the things they
Yeah,
use.
for sure.
Been pretty good so far. I like it.
Cool.
Well, as I said, we did that I did that Huntxp thing that we love to do and get other people into hunting. And so I took my buddy out, and he literally hunted for like 20 minutes. We sat down. I was like, dude, the doe is going to come from right there. And then like a few minutes later, I'm like, there it is. And he shot, and I thought he smoked it, but this is the beauty of filming stuff. I look back, I'm like, ooh, that's a little back. And then we looked at the arrow, and the arrow is covered with the green guts. And I'm like, okay. So then we heard coyotes howling. I'm like, oh, let's just go look. And we had a good blood trail and found a wound bed. And I'm like, we just really got to back out. And I'm like, well, I have this TRAKR app. Let's try this.
Yeah.
So I popped on there, and one of the people who popped on was Shane Simpson. And the dude has like 11 years tracking experience, like X number of recoveries. This dude like just was loaded with experience. I'm like, let's choose that guy. And so
Yeah.
it turns out he was one of the founders of the app. We get talking. I'm like, dude, you got to come on the podcast. So that's how we have Shane on here tonight. So my buddy got his first deer and got to experience a recovery. And we would have not found that doe because it it eventually made itself or like stopped in high grass, and Shane almost walked right by it, but the dog was like in the grass, and he knocked down all the grass before we got there. But he said before we got there, like, you could have walked 2 feet away from it and you would have never seen the
Jeez.
thing.
Yeah.
such a cool story, and cool that it made this connection and he could come on the podcast. So let's bring him on.
Bring him on.
Bring him on. Well, Shane, you're here, man. Welcome to the Huntxp podcast. It's good to have you.
All right. Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For people who don't know you or haven't discovered your content yet, could you give us a little rundown of who you are, where you're at, what you've been up to?
I'm in Minnesota. I'm actually from South Carolina, for people who hear the accent. Transplanted up here about 17 years ago, I think now. I've been hunting all my life, been filming my hunts since I was like 14 years old. Eventually
Wow.
started putting that on YouTube. Got a good following on YouTube, mainly for turkey hunting. And well, actually, a lot of people follow me for my deer tracking with my dog, the Cali Chronicles. I haven't done a whole lot of that lately, but there for a few years, I was putting out quite a bit of videos of her recoveries. And life has just gotten so busy now; it's hard to find time to edit and do all that stuff. I got too many irons in the fire, if you will. But
Yeah.
and then because of my tracking and being an admin for the Minnesota network, we ended up developing this app that should, streamline the process of hunters and trackers connecting when they need a tracker.
You got connected to me because a week or two ago, this name came across TRAKR, JD Larso. I forgot to put the N in my last name. And I've used the app twice now, and I used it because I took a buddy hunting first time, and he made kind of a poor shot back. As it turns out, I found out that the crossbow was not sighted incorrectly because I went to shoot it again. So not so much on him as it was on me. Regardless, we're like, because I had the experience before with TRAKR, and then you reached out personally to me and you said, hey, is this app working for you? And then we ended up going with you. You came out and found the doe that he shot with Callie, it was her name.
Yep, Callie.
That was such a fun experience. So that's how we got connected. I'm like, hey, we got to have you on the podcast. So this is great to have you.
Yeah. So a little more context to that, because I am an admin for the Minnesota group and one of the owners of the app, I have admin privileges on the app. So I can, when a hunter submits a request, their name and phone number is obscured or not shown to the trackers. And the reason for that, when we first launched, it was visible. And what we were having was trackers that were basically abusing the privilege. They would call the hunter and try to convince them, especially in states where it's very competitive, trackers trying to, they want to get every track they can, trying to convince the hunter to pick them. We had trackers that were screenshotting the phone number and hunter's name and posting on Facebook, hey, anybody know a tracker for this hunter? And I'm like, hey guys, this hunter didn't give you permission. Maybe he wants his privacy and doesn't want everyone, the whole world, to know his phone number, no one, and to know where he's hunting, that he wounded a deer. And so we blurred that out. Now you have to be accepted once you apply to a track. So when your track popped up, I saw that we can see that trackers apply to a track. It has a little number there on our side of the app. And then I can't remember what happened. And so I reached out to make sure there was no issue. And the reason for that is because we had just created a new update for the app and then launched. And every time there's an update, sometimes there's little issues that pop up. Long story short, I applied to it also to the track, even though it wasn't my intention to take the track. I just wanted to make sure it was working. And then you accepted
you did. And then you did, and then your history popped up because when you request a track, then in the app, the trackers reach out to you.
Well, we apply.
And it gives you, and then it gives you their track record. I'm like, this guy has been doing this for 9 years, and he has all these recoveries. Little did we know that you were one of the owners and founders of it, and struck up a friendship, and you found the doe. So it was awesome. It all worked out.
It sounded like a pretty easy recovery to me. Those liver, plus you had video of it. You didn't put it in the app, but the app does allow hunters to submit full resolution videos. So if you had 8K video from your phone, it would come through as 8K. Whereas if you're sending it as a text or putting it in Facebook Messenger, it compresses it, and sometimes you lose that quality. From your video that you actually texted me, it was clear enough to see, because it was pretty close, that it was right there in that liver area, maybe guts. And we have, dogs have a high recovery rate with those. I don't know if the deer just puts off more odors, that wounded, sick odor that a deer puts off when, it's hurt bad. But I was like, Yeah, I wasn't really planning on tracking them on. I just got off work. There's a lot of trackers in the metro area here, and I was like, someone will be about. I think like 3 people applied to your request.
Oh yeah, like right, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah,
right away.
so
Yeah,
but I was like, you know
yeah.
what? I guess I'll get up in the morning and go take a track. I
Well, that's
work
great.
these.
Well, we're grateful for it. Yeah. Well, let's back up a little bit. We want to ask questions about TRAKR for sure, and the insights that you guys have gained, and how it's kind of a game changer for hunters
Mhm.
who struggle with the track. But let's go back to how did you get into tracking personally yourself?
So, like I said earlier, I do a lot of turkey hunting. I have a lot of content on my YouTube channel. I was invited to go on a media hunt back in, I'm guessing it was 2016. Yeah, 2016, spring of 16, in Illinois, and we had folks out there from the National Wild Turkey Federation. There was a bunch of outdoor writers, people that write articles in magazines, and then we had companies like Primos and Mossy Oak that sponsored it. And I was there
Mm,
just to video it, and capture some of the hunts. Well, there just so happened this is a big whitetail outfitter, right? And so they get a lot of big, clients and big names in the outdoor industry. And right next door lived a tracker, and he
mm,
goes by TRAKR John. In the evenings at the lodge, he would be over there and telling tracking stories. And you're talking about just captivating. I mean, it was just him talking, and everyone
mhm,
just like, wow, listen to this stuff. And I'm like, man, I need a tracking dog, because and that fall I had an incident where I took a buddy hunting. I done filled my tag, and he'd never killed a buck with his bow. And I took him to one of my good spots and I saw a buck right at sunset. I grunted to it. He come charging in broadside. And I jokingly earlier, I saw I was broadhead. I said, man, you're using a rage. I said, whatever you do, don't hit that deer in the shoulder. All right. I said, aim
mhm,
back a little bit. He's all right. Well, the deer stopped broadside right there at like 15 yards. He shoots and whack right in the shoulder. It hit
mm,
so hard, knocked the light of knock off, and the deer runs off. Minimal penetration. And I asked him, I said, why'd you shoot him in the shoulder? He said, man, there was a little bit of grass in front of his vital, so I moved forward just a little bit. I said, you would have busted right through that grass, but that's neither here nor there. But he was a contractor and had employees and stuff, so he paid one of his employees to come out there to help with grid search this morning. We actually made a Facebook post asking for volunteers, and we had several volunteer, and we told them where to meet us the next morning, the local McDonald's. No one showed up, and we grid
mm,
searched for hours and hours, and I mean covered every nook and cranny of that place. Just so
wow.
happened the buck showed up like 2 weeks later on camera, still alive with the wound right here in his shoulder. So that was
Mm,
good, but it made me realize that you can't rely on people, and grid searching is so ineffective. Those two things. Don't rely on people's word. And I was like, I'm getting me a dog, after hearing
mm,
John's stories that spring. So I got me a dog. I got Callie. Actually found her on like a Craigslist listing. It was a bear houndsman. He raises them in Wisconsin for bear hunting. And
mhm,
I guess he had a few of his dogs had pups all at the same time. He had too many dogs and needed to get rid of them quick. So he sold her to me pretty cheap. Met him at a Walmart, picked her up and started training her. And the
right.
following season, 2017, she started tracking. She turned a year old, and we had a phenomenal tracking season that year.
Wow. So just in 1 year, she was ready to go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can in a few months they're ready to start tracking, but a year was a good age for me. I think I got her at like 8 weeks, and I figured year old she'd be good. And they'll usually hit their prime in 3, 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that range. So she's hit her prime.
What is the brief overview process of training a tracking dog? What are the steps you do?
So, yeah, this is going to be very brief. Introduction of scent lines. Like I took a little piece of beef liver from the store, drug it through the yard, got her out there. And you may at this time want to start putting your dog in like what you're going to track in a little vest or something, so they know their mind switches. Say, okay, when I got this on, and the lead, I'm tracking deer.
Hmm.
Point to the ground, give her command, find it. She knows that's when the time to start searching. She follows the beef liver. I didn't do that but a few times, and then I started using deer legs. And I try to use deer legs from deer that were shot and ran a distance before expiring. That way the leg hair and everything accumulates those odors of a wounded deer. And then the hooves also have that interdigital gland too. So that's individual for each deer, just like a baby deer, falling finds its mother. That's how they can track each other. I started
Hmm.
taking a little piece of deer hide or a hoof and dragging that, find it. She'd follow that. I'd move to just walking the deer hooves. I know some people like to use blood and drop bloods and drip blood along the trail. I did a few times, but then I just went to all just straight hooves because there's going to be times where all you have is there's no blood. All you have is the scent line of the deer, and then from there you start just extending the length of the track and age in the track. So you may want to leave the track as, say, 2 hours old, but extend it to 400 yards, 800 yards, just progressively get longer and longer, add some 90-degree turns in there, and then start aging the tracks. Lay a 800-yard long track, or maybe shorten it back up a little bit and age it for 12 hours for, start increasing the age. And you're just basically adding, difficulty to the track. Real world situations, back tracks, age on track. A lot of these tracks, we don't get there until 12 hours later, 24 hours later sometimes. And you have to you have to give wait time. So if it's because we track on lead in Minnesota, we're not using dogs off lead and baying them up and dispatching them. They don't necessarily have to worry about wait times as much as us. We want to make sure the deer's dead when we track it. So if it's a gut shot buck, say in September, 10 to 12 hours, probably when it'll finally go septic and die. As we get closer to the rut, those bucks, because of their testosterone and everything, it's like they're, souped up bucks. Those deer shot in the same location, the gut, stomach, whatever, liver, end up living much longer, twice as long, 24 hours plus, for whatever reason. Anyway, back to the lines, you age it, add some difficulties, some, turns or whatever. And you also want to account for distractions like other deer. You don't want your dog tracking the wrong deer. So you lay a track, age it, say 12 hours, come in there right before you run the dog on the track. You take a piece of deer hide from another deer and drag it, 100 yards into the track, drag it across it perpendicular. And your dog gets on the trail, and hopefully the dog doesn't turn and follow that hot, fresh smell. And if it does, you can correct the dog and teach them like, hey, we need to stay on this deer right here. I probably left out a bunch of other stuff, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Did you know that you can use AI to become a better hunter? Here's what you got to do. Our team at Huntxp has built a custom AI. We call it TRAKR, and it is the combination of the power of AI and the collective wisdom of hunters for many years mashed up together and put right in your pocket, right in the field where you can level up your hunting game. You can ask it things like, what's the best broadhead setup for my situation? What's the best day to hunt this week? All sorts of questions. It's super fun. Our community is having a great time building this. We'd love for you to join in at huntxp.com. Join us. Yeah, that was one of the big revelations for me, because as a hunter, you're just focused on the blood trail.
Yep.
But when you bring in a tracking dog, they're tracking the deer's scent from the interdigital gland. That's probably a misconception. Do you ever get in situations where like, hey, but here's the blood, and do you have to explain to hunters that your dog's actually tracking the hooves?
Yeah, it becomes obvious too when the hunter says, hey, I got the arrow here. Do you want me to let the dog sniff it? And I'm like, there's nothing on that arrow really that she's going to be tracking. I mean, you got blood on it, but she's not going to be tracking the blood. You got some fat on there. She's not going to be tracking the fat, and she knows what it smells like. She does her best. If I can find some fresh hoof tracks in the ground, I'll point to it. She buries her nose in it, and then she's like locked on. But in most cases, like in your situation, I'm not going to be super critical of you, but you didn't do a good job of marking your blood trail. Or did y'all put any tissue or anything down, like when you're tracking?
No, but I was using the TRAKR in Onyx.
Yeah. So when I say a good job, I mean in regards to me bringing a dog out there, it's always helpful when I'm going to a track that the tracker can say, hey, blood trail, last blood's over here. I've got it marked with this flag or this piece of tissue. So when I got there, you knew about where the trail came out onto the driveway. I figured I'd just let Callie sniff around. When she detects a wounded deer, she's going to, and her head snapped right when she got to that certain area and she started tracking. She did miss a turn, I guess, in her excitement. Like I told you right out of the gate when I got out of the truck, this is her first track of the season. This is the first track of the day. She's got a lot of energy. She may miss turns. In that first run, she missed a turn. It wasn't until we brought her back later that she corrected herself in that turn. She ran the same path and then she corrected and then went to the doe.
I think that brings up a question. What are some things that a hunter can do to make your and Callie's life easier? And then on the flip side, what are things hunters do that make your and Callie's life more difficult?
So marking the trail, that's not only good for trackers, but it's also good for the hunters. I mean, when you have to back out yourself and then come back the next day, you don't have to scramble around looking for blood, but it really serves us a good purpose, especially if you mark it from the hit site and every 10 yards or so, just drop a little piece of tissue. For the hunter, if you're tracking yourself, you kind of get a line of direction. You can look back and say, oh, the deer's going this way. And I've seen that help me where I'm dropping blood as I follow it and it starts getting sparse, and I look and I can see a slight arc through the woods of the blood. And so when I start fanning out, I'm gonna look more to the right, and especially they tend to stay on deer trails. So if I got a trail going straight and one veering off to the right, I'll start looking on that trail, and then sure enough, I'll pick up blood. But for us tracking, depending on how far you tracked, if you got tissue marked, you go back and watch some of my videos on YouTube. If the hunter doesn't have it marked, you'll hear me start calling. You'll hear me, all right, have we passed last blood? I want to confirm that she's locked onto it. And so if there's tissue down, I can watch her hit all those marks. And I don't have to ask the hunter, are we still on the trail? No, the trail goes this way. And I'm like, okay, she's off. I need to restart her. It just makes it a lot easier for us. And then the other thing is you don't waste a bunch of our time out there. Like I've been on a number of tracks where the hunter didn't mark last blood or blood at all. And one last year and then one year before, I think we spent 30 minutes plus at the start of the track while I stood there and waited for the hunter to try and find where the blood trail was. Just roaming through the woods. They were looking at onyx, but onyx is off by 10 yards and the woods are thick. Yeah. So it became kind of a little nightmare situation there where we spent way too much time, and that time's critical, especially this time of year where we're getting calls left and right. And every 30 minutes I spend at one track is 30 minutes I can't be driving or tracking for another hunter.
Yeah.
The other thing that hunters do, they mark their blood trail with local vegetation. So I tracked for this one hunter once, and he had marked the trail with whatever was close by the blood trail. So the deer was along a cornfield. He was marking it with corn stalks. And then it went through the pine trees, and he was marking it with little pine limbs. And there was pine limbs and pine cones everywhere. There was, corn stalks everywhere. I didn't know what was his marked trail or people right. So the point is, even if you haven't been marking the blood trail and the trail's getting difficult and you're starting to consider a dog, at least mark last blood, hang a flag or drop some tissue there, something brightly covered so it's easy for us to spot.
That's good. That's good. I'm curious, is there anything that you changed as a hunter after you became a tracker? Or anything that you learned that you incorporated in your hunting?
I don't think there's a whole lot of tactics that I've added. I think most of it is after the shot. Like I'm more patient to wait to start tracking afterwards, because that's one of the number one reasons we're called out is the hunter tracks and then bumps the deer. And usually after you bump a deer, the wound's already clotted and they don't have a blood trail to follow. So now they don't know where to go. And so then they call us out. And then as you bump deer, you extend that scent line. So that random coyote coming through the woods cuts that line. So if it's just a 200-yard line, the coyote may not cut it. But if you bump the deer and it goes another 400 yards, now you got a 600-yard scent line for a coyote to come across, and then you lose your deer either way. So
that's something that you challenged me on, because part of that deer recovery was we could hear the coyotes everywhere. And I'm like, oh, man. We got to get out and just see if that with these coyotes going. And of course we bumped it like you described. And the next day I was like, yeah, we went out because we heard the coyotes. And then you explained to me that actually it's almost better to wait because you're extending the track line, like you said. So the coyotes have more chance of cutting that same scent that your dog's picking up. So the chances of the coyotes getting on the deer are higher after it's bumped in some sense, because you created a longer line for them to cross through the woods, which for me, I was like, oh, I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah. I mean, and what I tell you, I said, coyotes howl every night. I mean, I hear it from, I'd say more than 50% of the hunters I'll talk to on the phone when they're talking to me about a track, and I'll say, okay, we'll be there in the morning. Oh man, you sure you don't want to do it tonight? I heard coyotes. I'm like, man, I hear them every evening when I'm in the deer stand getting out, and in the morning when I'm in the stand. They're just talking to each other. If they're on your deer eating it, they're not howling. They're gobbling deer down. So
Right. So walk us through real quick, if someone's listening to this, what are the wait times that you advise for different hits or different shots?
So it actually varies depending on the sex of the animal or the deer and the time of the season. So if we're looking at September, it's going to be about the same for bucks and does. Does and younger bucks and just younger deer in general don't survive quite as long, it seems like, and they don't run as far. But we still try to give them the same amount of wait time. So if I think it's like right in the liver, maybe got some lung, 8 to 10 hours, somewhere in that ballpark. I'm moving it up. If it's stomach, I'm moving it up to about 12 hours at least. If we get closer to the rut and it's a doe, those times stay about the same. But if it's a buck, 12 hours is probably going to be coming up on a live deer. So I try to move it closer. Some people go to 24 hours. I don't like to quite go that far. I'll go like 18 hours and take a gamble that if we do walk up on him alive, he's so weak he can't go anywhere, and then I'll just back out and the hunter go dispatch him. So we call them zombie deer. Funny story. There's a tracker from Louisiana up. He's up here for work, and he was helping out in western Minnesota tracking. Brought his dog with him, and I was talking to him about the zombie deer. Make sure you give them a proper wait time. He's like, what is that? And I was like, and I explained the whole story. They don't have to deal with that issue down in Louisiana because they're catch and bay and dispatch. So they put their dogs out, GPS collars. If it's a gut shot, they just put the dogs on it whenever, and it runs it down, bays it up, and then they dispatch it. So wait times are irrelevant to them. And so they don't see these deer because they're always tracking them, maybe 2 hours after they were shot. They don't see these deer living 24 hours or 12 hours longer than they would have in the early season. And so he had a track on the app, and I was like, yeah, it's been about 18 hours. You're good to go. Go ahead. They ended up tracking that deer, supposedly a gut shot, and it was still alive. But I'm not sure exactly where the hunter hit it. And I need to ask because the hunter, they backed out. The hunter actually saw the deer the next day walking around. They shot it and killed it. So they were able to get it, but that was 36 hours later, and it was still alive. So he kind of learned what a zombie buck is.
Nice. So tell us do you just have some stories that you tell often with tracking, some wild stories or ones that you tell just to kind of illustrate the point of the need for a tracker?
I have a lot of tracking stories. I mean, this one here would be the need. This was one of the early tracks I took, and this was one of the longest recoveries we've had. I hear stories of trackers going miles following a deer, 2 and 3, 4 miles. We don't have the range around here where I track. The property line's in too soon. But I was in Wisconsin one year, and I was actually tracking for a buddy. He'd shot a deer. We were supposed to go fall turkey hunting the next morning. He said, we're going to have to put that on hold. I shot a buck this evening. I'm trying to track him down. I was like, well, why don't I just bring my dog down and track him for you? Get him out of the woods, and then we can go turkey hunting tomorrow. He said, all right, that sounds like a plan. Well, I get down there, and Callie starts tracking, and we end up going quite a ways. And I was like, we may want to back out. This is not right. We'd already gone hundreds of yards, and blood was getting sparse. I said, I'm going to let her track across this field here and to the edge of the woods, and then we'll stop her. We got no blood at that point. We were just going on Callie's sniffing. And we got to the edge of the woods and stopped her, and then I just saw one little drop of blood on a leaf. And I said, all right, we'll stop right here. It's good confirmation. Next morning, got on the trail again. She took me down the little 4-wheel trail through the woods to a food plot, and she wanted to go down the hill, and I stopped her. I was still new to tracking, so I didn't have 100% trust in her like I should. And so I brought her back. I stopped her when she wanted to go down that hill, and the hunter found a wound bed right there where I'd stopped her. Restarted her. She was doing all these circles and stuff, just going nuts. And I was like, I don't know what's going on with her. Later on, I realized that's when coyotes get on a deer or whatever. She could smell the coyotes, and so she was just sniffing around, and she was really aggressive and barking and going around. She could smell where the coyotes had been. They obviously got this deer bumped up out of his wound bed because we weren't anywhere near it that night. And so he should have been expired, we thought, by the next morning. Long story short, we noticed a couple trail cameras. We were on the neighbor's property at this point. We'd already had permission. But my buddy called the neighbor and asked, could we pull the SD cards out of the cameras as we passed them and check them? We won't delete anything. We'll just check, see what's on there, and then put them back. And so he's like, sure. So actually, we didn't go check them at that time. We just kept tracking, and we went down the hill and got to a county road, and there was a speck of blood on a blade of grass right at the county road. And now we're at a mile away. I got some burdock stuff in my eyes. I went through some of that, and we need to go to the house and me to clean up, take a break, and check these SD cards. This is in the afternoon now. This is a very long, slow track, methodical. If I just trusted Callie from the get-go, she probably would have took me straight to deer in, a few minutes, but I kept stopping her and looking at evidence and confirming things. But we looked at the trail cam pictures. The buck was not on any camera. We did see other deer. We saw the coyotes, and then we saw us. We got back to start tracking, and the hunter, while I was tracking, he went back up the trail, and he was looking at the trail cameras, and he was looking for blood, and he found blood around the backside of a couple of the trail cameras where the deer intentionally went around the backside of the tree. The only thing we can assume is the deer learned that by not walking in front of the camera, it didn't make that noise of the IR filter changing from night mode. How they have those, you hear a click. So the deer learned it was conditioned. That's all we can think of. It didn't know what it was. It doesn't hear that click when it goes around this side of the tree. And so that's, I think, what we theorized, why it avoided every trail camera, but every trail camera we followed, while I was following Callie, got us on camera. And she doesn't necessarily stay on the exact scent line the whole time. The deer scent line could do this, and Callie may go straight through it all. So while the deer was going around behind the tree and then coming back to the four-wheeler trail, she was just following the four-wheeler trail. Anyway,
that's wild.
We were at the county road, and Callie went across it, sniffed a little bit, and then she came back, and then she started walking the edge of the road. And I went about a third of the mile down the road. And here's another thing is, if as a tracker, when you're new to it, don't let the hunter influence you too much. And me being new at the time, he was like, oh, this buck wouldn't have walked down the edge of a county road. It's got a lot of traffic on it. And I was like, well, he could have walked down it last night. And, he was like, well, I want you to go over here and sniff air scent this area over here. This is where a lot of them bed, this is where some of them die. And so he was directing me on where to go and stuff. I should have just been trusting my dog. We did that, and then I came back and said, well, I'm going to put her back on the scent line where she was taking me along the road. I didn't have any blood to confirm it, but I'm assuming that's where it was. So I put her back. She went down there, and she cut into the swamp, and we went a few hundred yards, and there was an intersecting trail. She blew past it, and then she put on the brakes, came back, sniffed, and went that way. And I looked over to my left, and I saw a deer leg sticking out behind some brush. And I went over, and there's this huge buck. And so I called out at my buddy. I'm like, hey, I need your help. I got something in my eye again. He's like, again? What is it you and get stuff in your eye? And I said, he's all right, I'll be there in a second. So I'm standing there, and he comes busting through the brush, and he's, where you at? I'm like, over here. And he finally gets right there, and he sees the buck. You found it. I'm like, yeah. But that deer, when we cut it open, we discovered it had been previously shot. I don't know when, but it had been shot, and one of the lungs had a huge wound on it. Wasn't fully, capable. His shot had gone through that lung also, through the liver and out the other lung. So it hit both lungs. It hit center punch the left lung, the one that was already wounded, went out the back of the other lung, and the liver that sits on the right side of the deer went out it. And the liver is probably what killed the deer or the lungs. But it was still smoking. This was like 3:00 in the afternoon. It was still heat inside that thing. And the deer was somewhat limber, not fully limber. Rigor had started setting in. But I was like, man, this deer hasn't been dead, maybe a couple hours at most. And so maybe we still would buck. Yeah. And that's a zombie buck.
Jeez, man. What time of year is that?
It was right. Yeah, it's first week of November or something like that. Second week. It was right in the middle of the rut.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I was gonna ask the question, Shane, like, what's a shot that is the worst as far as tracking? Like, you're talking about you hear one lung shot, horrible, right? Deer can go a long way, but from your experience as a tracker, yeah, a deer might die, but what's the worst shot for you as a tracker to be tracking a deer?
Yeah, those single lung shots have a low recovery odds. When I see a hunter say, hey, I shot it right behind the shoulder, the first thing I ask, did you get a pass through? No. How much arrow did you get into him? I don't know, 8 or 10 inches, probably hit the off shoulder. I'm like, no, 8 or 10 inches is not going to make it to the off shoulder, especially if you got an angle, whatever. But it just seems like, a deer can live on one lung, can survive it. I've actually seen a double lung hit deer survive. Only once, but it's probably very rare. How long would it have survived? I don't know. This one ended up getting hit by a car like 3 weeks later. But we had pictures of the wound, entry and exit wounds from trail camera, and this deer had a perfect like shot right here, exit low out the other side, and I'm like, man, it's a wonder it didn't hit its heart and it survived.
Jeez.
But those one lung hit deer, and minimum penetration, 6 to 8 inches. I don't like going on those. We take them all, but I'd rather have a pass through. And then those high shoulder shots, those are almost a guaranteed not a recovery. Those are going to survive. But we always ask the hunter, hey, I don't think it's a lethal shot. I'll come out just to give you peace of mind. We want to put the dog on it and rule it out that we're not leaving a dead deer out there. And so some of them, a lot of hunters take us up on that offer. Totally. Can I take a break real quick? I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Some tea now. I don't know
There
if you
you
guys
go.
could see that. The more I talked, the more it tickled my throat and the tears were coming in my eyes. Get back, Jasper.
Yeah, it would be ironic if you were allergic to tracking dogs.
Yeah, I probably am, but it's I guess worth the punishment.
Yeah. It's good. Well, Shane, tell us about the app for people who don't know about it. Tell us, like, someone who's like, there's an app you can find a tracker. Like, tell us why someone should have this.
Well, there's a lot of reasons, I guess. If you have a personal friend that's a tracker that's available anytime, then app's probably not going to do you a whole lot of good unless you like the analytical part of it. So let me give you a rundown how the app operates, and then I'll talk about some of the benefits and features. Basically, no matter where you're at, maybe you're traveling out of state, you don't know the trackers, or you're in your home state and you don't know the trackers. You basically go on the app, create an account, takes a few seconds, I don't know, a minute or two. And then you submit a request and it'll ask you some questions, same questions a tracker is going to ask you on the phone. If you did it the old fashioned way, calling down a list of tracking phone numbers, you're going to answer those questions, how many phone numbers you call. If you talk to 10 trackers, you're going to answer all those questions 10 times. The app basically asks once, you hit submit, and it sends a push notification out to every tracker in the area and whatever they have their radius set on. So as a tracker, I may have a bubble of 80 miles around me, and then another tracker have bubble around them. If we both get it, then it sends it. It'll tell you, hey, two trackers received your request, or 40 trackers received your request. If tracker sees it and they're available or interested, they'll offer their services. The hunter will get a push notification saying 3 trackers have offered their services. At that point, you can look at them, each tracker's profile, their ratings and reviews, what other hunters are saying about them, their fees, their dog, their certifications. You can look at all that. And if you don't know what the certifications mean, you Google it real quick. Hey, what does a UBT 1 or 2 or ABTA finished mean? If they're a drone pilot, they have there's actually a certification for them out now through the ABTA. And that's just to make sure the drone operator understands, wait times. And you can look at the trackers and pick the one you want to go with. Now, if you accept a tracker, you're not committed to that tracker. It's just you accept them and now you can communicate. And if you decide to stay with that tracker, then the tracker will come out and track. Yeah. These are actual tracking requests that just came in on my phone. Let me mute
That's
that.
perfect for the podcast.
Anyway,
Damn it.
there's 3 of them back to back. Because I have my phone on power saving mode, sometimes they're delayed by a minute or two, and then they all just come in together. But at any rate, a tracker comes out and tracks it. When they're done, they mark it complete, and they'll ask the tracker a few questions like, did you find the animal, or did you locate it? Or was the hunter able to tag it? How far did you advance the track? Et cetera. Just like 3 or 4 questions, conditional. And then all that data is saved. The data that the hunter put in, like the hunter can put in their weapon they use, the compound bow, the manufacturer, the broadhead, the arrow, everything, or the firearm. And then, the stuff we ask them about the deer, how was it standing, what coordinates you hit it, was it a pass through, did you have a lighted knock? All that, every single question you answer is saved in the analytics. And then we use that to show like results for broadheads and firearms and calibers, and people can look at that. And now we're saving data for dog breeds. We'll eventually start putting that on there, which is some of the favorite breeds of trackers, and how do these dogs perform? What's their recovery rate, and what's their average recovery distance? You can kind of see which, maybe by state, some states and maybe dogs better suited, like here in Minnesota, where there's a lot of marshes and wetlands. A small little teeny tracking dog, a lot of people use like Teckles and stuff. They may not be super suited for that stuff. You have to carry them through it. That's why I have a long-legged coonhound. She handles that white. When the deer, though, I was tracking for you or your buddy, we went through a cattail marsh, and she was she was swimming in it basically. That's basically the premise of how it works. And then if you decide the tracker you do accept and you don't want to work with them, you just kick them off the track, or the tracker rescinds from it, and it sends out a new round of notifications to all the trackers, say, hey, this track's available again. Something for some reason it didn't work out between the first two. Maybe it was after talking to the tracker, they decided they needed more wait time, and the tracker had to work the next morning, for example, and say, okay, I won't be available when the deer's probably dead. Let's get you someone else. And then we have networks also, like here in Minnesota, where we'll communicate. Hey, there's a track on the app. I spoke to the hunter. I'm not available in the morning. I think it's a gut shot. I think it needs more time than they thought initially. Who's available? Just go ahead and apply for it. And so we'll communicate that way. But it basically just speeds up the process. And it's I'm trying to think of the word it gives you that where you don't have to announce it to the world. Do it anonymously.
Anonymity, like
Yep, there you go.
confidentiality, right?
Yeah, and trackers, when you put your location on the app, when you're submitting it, it'll ask you for your hunting location. I kind of prefer that the hunter at least puts it like in the general area that your stand was, so I know what kind of woods I'm getting into or terrain. Is it a swamp, or is there deep water, or is it just a dry farm field? Where I can wear hiking boots instead of hip waders. And some hunters, they just put it where their house is at, because it automatically goes to where they're at when they're submitting the request, even though you can move the pin to where you want to. That's okay also, as long as we know the general area we're going to.
Yeah.
And for the tracker, it's really nice because, like in the old days, we're just getting phone calls. Are you available? I'm like, yeah, where are you at? I'm here. I'm like, okay, that's an hour and a half away. Okay, I can be there in the morning. Get another call. Where you at? Okay, that's 45 minutes away. I can be there after my first track. Then I realize they're in opposite directions. So now there's 2 hours and 15 minutes apart. Whereas on the app, because it drops a pin on our tracker side of the things, we can see a pin for each request. So I can look at it and say, oh, there's 3 tracks here together and 2 over here. I'll just take all 3 of these and let someone else get those other 2. We can kind of be more efficient that way.
Yeah. I've used the app twice now for 2 recoveries, and it was a new experience for me. And I know this just part of like hunting, there's a certain amount of shame, or like I didn't make a good shot. I don't want to get more people involved. But I think that there's like,
I've already lost 3 deer. I don't need anyone to know I lost a 4th one.
Exactly, right? But I like both the trackers, yourself included, have just been awesome to work with. They're like, ask me a bunch of questions. It gives you a lot of confidence, whether the first one I tracked down, I couldn't find it. And then someone found it a week later, but it was a really poor shot and I didn't recover it. The second, or I did, but eventually. And then with you, your knowledge of the situation was exponentially more than I could have surmised from the situation itself. And that's what I don't think people, you might think, well, this person's going to track the track, but what you're also getting is someone who's been on a series of tracks before, who's been in these situations a lot, and most of the hunters have probably only got shot a deer once or twice and don't know all the things that, the amount of tracks that the trackers have been on. I think that's understated. Like the experience that you're getting when you're paired with a tracker is pretty significant, not just the value of the tracking dog itself.
Yeah, and I can talk badly about those guys because I was one of those guys at one time, where if I drew blood on deer, I just assumed it was a dead deer. I didn't really know wait times or any of that. I mean, you look at a Facebook post, and I've been on so many tracks now. To me, I see a picture on Facebook. Someone says, what do y'all think of this blood? And I'm seeing comments like, it looks like liver shot to me. Go get your deer. It looks like this. Number one, liver shot may not be dead. Don't tell someone to just go run there and get the deer. You can hit a liver and kill them within seconds, but a lot of liver shots, depending on where you hit it in the liver, that deer can live 10, 12 plus hours. I tracked one 16 hours after it was shot, and it was just hitting the liver. And that buck got up and charged us and scooped Callie up in his antlers momentarily. Then it stopped, and it was weak on its feet, and it finally laid back down. But that video's on my YouTube channel as well. You don't really see the buck scoop her up because it's tall, like CRP stuff, but it scared me a little bit there. I was pulling on her lead, yanking her back out of the antlers. Luckily, she didn't get gored. But yeah, we see these things, and just from so many tracks, I can tell you about what a deer is going to do after certain shots, or what they're likely to do, especially a gut shot. I've coached several people, even one of our trackers now. He called me before he started tracking. This was years ago. He called me about a track, And he said, I know you're too far away, but I'd like some advice. And he described the shot and everything. I said, have you tracked it? He said, no, I'm still in the deer stand. I was like, perfect. Sounds like a gut shot. I said, mentally mark where you last saw that deer. He was standing there about to go out of sight. And I said, what's beyond there? And he said, it's just some field and then there's a fence line and then woods. I said, just slip out of there quietly, maybe wait till dark so you don't risk bumping him. Go where you last saw him the next day. I said, he's either going to be bedded next to that fence or he may jump over it and bed just inside the woods. You don't need me anyway. Next morning, he went there and just over the fence in the woods with the deer dead, bedded, it bedded up and then died. So, I mean, it did exactly. And that's typically what happens with a gut shot deer. They run initially, stop, they hunch up, slowly walk away, 250, 300 yards away, you find them bedded, dead. And for does, it may not be quite as far, but it's, in that same realm. So, I mean,
you guys have been tracking this stuff in the app now for a while. What are some of the insights that you guys are discovering from like correlating all this data about recovery times and distances, broadheads, calibers? What are you learning?
So I can't quote you stats off the top of my head, but I do remember seeing certain things like, I've been a pro fixed guy, broadhead guy for a while. And what the stats or the data is telling us, I mean, there was just an article that came out recently that a couple of trackers were interviewed for. I think it was in bowhunting.com. And, they were talking about the broadheads trackers get the most calls for or whatever. And they were, talking about mechanicals, like big 2-blade rage mechanicals. And, I was kind of like that. I was like, I hate mechanicals. But now looking at the data and then looking at my own tracking data for, my dog, mechanicals, they do have a flaw, and that's the lack of pass-throughs. But their big cutting diameter kind of compensates enough for it. So if you looked at the two, like fixed versus mechanical, you're going to get a lot more pass-throughs with a fixed blade. And pass-throughs equate to more recoveries, higher recovery rate. But for non-pass-throughs, which you get more with a mechanical, you have a much higher recovery rate with a mechanical non-pass-through than you do a fixed non-pass-through. And it's so out of balance that you'd almost rather shoot a mechanical all the time because the recovery rates for a non-pass-through are much higher than a fixed with a non-pass-through, but they're not so much lower than a fixed on a pass-through. If you get what I'm saying. So it kind of goes in the favor of the mechanical. And what I'm seeing is if you could find that happy medium, and I don't want to promote a certain brand, but what I see seems to work really well. It's like a smaller cutting diameter, maybe like a Sever 1.5. It's wide enough that it does a lot more damage, but it's not so wide that it impedes pass-throughs. The Severs the 1.5 seem to get a lot of pass-throughs. We don't see a lot of requests for that broadhead. Is it because it's not used much, or is it just because the need doesn't arise a whole lot? But our recovery rate when we are called for that particular broadhead is high. So if I was to pick a broadhead, I'd probably go with that. But that's just one aspect of the app. We're seeing other things. Like I just posted something about grid searching recently. We always knew that when a hunter goes and tracks a deer, they lose the blood and they grid search with all their buddies. As a dog tracker, our recovery rates go down. Just assumed it was the disturbance of the scent. You've spread the deer's wounded scent all over your boots, got on your boots, and you walked around through the woods. Now you confuse the dog. Well, we have drone operators on the app too, and they're subject to going after, tracking deer, trying to locate deer after a grid search. Their recovery rate goes way down too, even more than a dog. So there's something else at play here. And so I made a post on social media and asked what everyone's theory, and I think everyone agreed that once you start grid searching, number one, you've ruled out that the deer is in the area. So it means it's probably not dead or you bumped it earlier. It's not a lethal hit or you bumped it. So you're not going to recover it anyway if it's not dead. That means recovery rates are going to go down. If you bumped it, you extended the line even longer, which means the longer the line, the possibility of a dog not being able to stay on that scent line throughout its duration, that decreases recovery rates. For the drones, why did it affect them so much? Maybe it bumped the deer beyond what they're willing to search. In their 3 hours that they're looking. Or the deer got up and went back the opposite direction where the hunter's direction of tracking. So now that they were tracking it north, the deer ran south after it got bumped from the grid search. Now the drone's focusing in that way, that area. Those are just theories, but that data's suggesting things like that. And then you can go through there and filter through all the analytics and you see like pass-through rates, how does that affect recovery? You can We have our broadhead spotlight now that takes the best of, all the broadheads and puts it in the algorithm and ranks them. Off the top of my head, there's a lot of stuff in the analytics that I think people can find useful. I mean, you can compare recovery rates between states or during the time of the season. You can look at what the average recovery distance for a buck in September versus November and things like that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Is it true? Because I know Johnny's a fan of the Schwacker.
Yeah, so when we launched the Broadhead Spotlight on the app, it looks at recovery rates, pass-through rates, average recovery distance. It puts an algorithm to it and creates a TRAKR score or TRAKR rating. It started out with Magnus as number one, and it has the top 5. I think Rage was in there. Then Swacker took over. The second week, Swacker ended up jumping to the number 1 spot. And then you got to have a minimum of 20 completed tracks on the app to be considered for the Broadhead Spotlight. QAD must have just needed that 1 or 2 extra. They're at 21 tracks now, and they just popped out of nowhere and went straight to number 1. So they must have been doing good already. They just needed that 1 extra to get into meet the criteria. So
yeah.
I sent a buddy of mine who's a real big fan of the QAD Exodus. I sent him a screenshot up today, and I didn't know I was going to start something with him because he started sending me pictures of deer he's killed with them, a whole story about his devotion to them, how great they are. I was like, man, I'm just showing you a picture. I didn't need you to write a book back.
That's funny.
Well, I'm pleased to know that Schwacker is near the top.
Yeah, they're number 2. Yeah, they're in the number 2 spot right now, so they're doing well.
Yeah, well, if Johnny wasn't such a good shot, maybe we'd have some more recoveries in the app with Schwacker.
Well, I did have to my buck last year. I mean, I didn't need a TRAKR, but it was a 1 lung shot. I know it. You talked about patience earlier, Shane. And bow hunting my whole life. And I saw the blood initially, and I was like, "Oh, dead deer. He's not going far." And I tracked, and after like 100 yards, I'm like, "Ooh, I don't know. This doesn't feel good." And then the deer had went to path of least resistance and was going downhill, and I was like, well, that's good. But then I found a bed, and I'm like, I gotta back out. And if I would have just waited initially from the shot, I don't know, 4 hours maybe, I think I would have found it dead in that first bed. But I bumped it out of that bed clearly, and it ended up going like another 400 yards and crossed the creek, and I found it on the other side of the creek the next morning. But
did coyotes
like,
get
man, no, it was fine.
Okay.
It was good. But it was just one of those, like, man, you know what? You just don't know. Like, you think you know because you've done it so many times, but you just don't know for sure. Unless you see that deer go down, you don't know.
I tell you, it's a very difficult decision. And I can give you 2 different scenarios of my own deer. I shot one in North Dakota several years back, and my initial thought was a perfect shot. I actually videoed him lay down in the field momentarily, and he got stood back up and walked into the woods. I'm like, oh, he's gonna be dead just inside the woods. I was in no big hurry to go get him. I sent text to my buddies, let them know I shot one, just to meet me there when they got done hunting tonight. Because my buddy dropped me off. So I got my gear down, walked to where the deer was hit, kind of looked around a little bit, left my arrow sitting there in the dirt, and walked to the road and waited. They got there at dark, it'd been a little while. We started tracking and started noticing the blood looked liverish, had a kind of a purplish hue to it, kind of an iridescence look to it. And you could actually see where the deer had bedded once in the woods, and you could see where like entry was, right here, but exit was the liver. The deer was actually ended up being slightly quarter in two, where I thought was broadside. And you could see where the puddle of liver blood was there, and then a little bit of blood where it dripped off the other side in the front of the bed. And I'm like, I can see both wounds here, the different types of blood. One was brighter. Me being a tracker, I knew better than to keep tracking. I was like, we should probably back out. But I'm like, I was so tempted to keep tracking, maybe just go a little bit farther, or just look a little bit farther up ahead with our lights, and we might see him. We ended up doing that. We didn't go much farther. And my buddy Garrett looks at me and says, Shane, don't move, your buck is right in front of us. And I was like, is he dead? He's like, no, he's looking at us. And I was like, all right, just turn around and let's just walk out. And as soon as we started to turn around, he bolted. And I'm like, dang it. I knew better. He looked pretty hurt though when we bumped him. So the next morning we we kind of marked where we last saw him. The next morning we went in there and there he was, just past there dead. And so it was, easy recovery the next morning. If we just done that to begin with, we'd have been okay. But and then the other scenario is because I've learned as a tracker to be more patient. Shot one a couple years ago. Again, thought it was a perfect shot. Texted my buddy, a different buddy, said, "Hey, I got one nice velvet buck. Hey, you need me to come help you track?" I'm like, "Nah, you stay in your stand, keep hunting. I'm gonna sit here and a doe may come along, may shoot me a doe. I don't know. I'll stay in the stand. I'm in no hurry. It was really cool out. Wasn't worried about the meat spoiling, So several hours later, I figured the deer was when it ran off, I thought it was just out of sight because of the trees. I'm up elevated in the woods. I figured when I got to the ground, I might see his white belly up to the woods. We started tracking and we made it like 350 yards. And I'm like, man, this is not good. And then we came up on a puddle of blood. My buddy's like, "Oh, big old puddle of blood. That's good." I was like, "Nope, that's never good." Anytime I'm tracking deer for people and we come up on a puddle of blood, that usually means we're not going to find that deer. That's usually where they stood there and like muscle blood or it just pooled and then they lick the wounds and then you don't have blood to go on. We backed out at that point and gave the deer a lot more time. We went back in there later and it was just pin drops from there and then nothing. And my buddy happened to just go forward and ahead on the trail a little bit and found a wound bed with a little bit of spot of blood in it. And I was like, all right, we're getting a dog. Got a dog out there, found it on Facebook. That's another advantage of the TRAKR app. The trackers are vetted on the app. There's some new trackers, but it clearly says it's a new tracker. But your vetted teams have regular counts. Anyway, I found somebody on Facebook and it was obvious soon after they got on scene, started tracking, they didn't have a trained dog. And I wasted money basically. Never found that deer, but it just goes to show. Now I know to be more patient. Don't ask me what happened with that deer. I know it's dead. I feel like 100% that deer is dead, and I don't know why it didn't die in 100 yards. These deer continually surprise me. There's things like I told you about the double lung shot deer. People will criticize you on social media because you need to learn to practice and shoot better. I couldn't have asked for a better shot in my mind, but what happens after the shot's beyond our control.
Yeah. So true. Yeah.
Well, Shane, really appreciate this, man. Thanks for coming on the pod. And I hope people listening to this take a hard look at the TRAKR app and jump on there. It's so easy to use. It's a great tool to have in your tool belt. I appreciate you guys building it. I feel like there's been a lot more recoveries. I hope a lot more people start using it. It's the ethical thing to do. There's certainly more deer being recovered, and you guys, the hard work and blood, sweat, and tears you've put into it is appreciated by this hunter, and I'm sure makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, the opportunity to talk about it, and I apologize for all the vocal issues I've had, the allergy and stuff. But some of the benefits we're seeing out of the app, I'll end it real quick. We have trackers out there that are recovering deer and they're saving a lot of animals, but that information is not being sent to the game server or DNR or whatever. I can foresee this one time, in the future, these numbers that are coming in, we're getting actual statistical numbers like 1,200 deer were recovered, for hunters. That's 1,200 other deer that didn't get shot because they didn't recover it. And then they went out and shot another deer, elk or whatever it is. So and not just from the app's perspective, but just trackers in general. We're saving, a resource. There's a lot of hunters. If I draw blood on deer, I'll eat my tag. If I'm out of state or something. But there's a lot of hunters, and I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. But in reality, hunters go out there, they shoot a deer, they can't find it. They have one buck tag, they'll go shoot another the deer, and so the DNR only gets counts that one deer. That's the only one they know about. But anyway,
yeah,
I'll get off that. But thanks for having me on, guys. It was a nice conversation. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
really
thank
appreciate
you so
it,
much.
man.
Thanks.
You. Behind the scenes bonus banter. Oh, he's calling me right now. I bet he's on a track. Hey Shane. Well, that's good, man. You need a couple minutes? All right. Just text me when you're ready, man. That's no rush. All good, dude. All good. We'll see you in a few. Yep. Bye. Glad I texted. Yeah, I should have texted him earlier. Dude, I had such a funky setup tonight.
Did ya?
With nested system. So this property I hunt on used to be like a quarry. It's like an old quarry. There's like no trees on it. So the one tree I attempted to get in, did I email him? Oh shoot. The one tree, figure this out quick. There's this little cottonwood right where they come out.
Yeah.
That's where I shot that one. That
Yep.
was on the ground because it's, dang it, suck at multitasking, obviously.
That's okay. No one's actually very good at that. I don't care what anyone says.
No one can actually do that. All right. So I got there. I'm like, I'm gonna try to set up in this tree, and then I was like I can't just sit here on the ground because the brush is too high to get a shot.
Yeah.
I can't. If I go up in this little tree, it's just gonna be ridiculous. Like they're gonna skylight me immediately because of the way that it is.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the platform like 2 feet off the ground, and I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
sit in my tree saddle where I've got all this back cover. I was in a tree stand 2 feet off the ground, and
Hey. Yeah.
and it was like I got all the brush covering me, and these little windows through the brush to shoot. I really need to pop a blind down right there, but it was like, and with the tree saddle, I could quietly move, unlike
Mm-hmm.
on the ground, and I could shoot almost 360 degrees.
I actually think that's super smart of you. That's the
Yeah.
way you should have done it, I think.
Yeah.
Perfect.
The back cover makes a big difference, I feel like. And with
Yeah.
the saddle, what I love to do is put it between me and where
Yeah.
the deer coming out, and I can draw back pathetically. I mean, there's nothing to draw back on tonight, but yeah.
Well, speaking of back cover and how good it is, yeah, we had that buck stop like 15 yards away in the brush, couldn't get a shot. But then later on, I'm like, here comes something. And I I thought it was, like I saw a little tree going like this, and I thought it was this buck rubbing it. Like I thought he was
Mhm.
rubbing it. And then he was marching right at us. And out pops his bear. Just little, like 150-pound bear, maybe
Yeah.
not even. Jude's thinking it's really cool, and I'm like, it is cool, but we're not going to see a deer with this thing in there, and he's going to stay all night. So I stand up, and we're in this huge pine, but I got this really good backdrop of these other pines behind me, and I'm
Mhm.
like, giving him like this whole thing, like, get out of here, I'm like clapping my hands a little bit, trying not to like be too loud,
Yeah.
and then he is not doing anything, and I'm like, well, I can break some brush, like that's a normal sound this time of year. So I'm snapping limbs off this pine tree, and he is like, he just does not care. And Jude's like, I'm gonna shoot him. I'm like, no, you can't shoot him. We don't have a bear tag.
I want to shoot
But
him.
so I start snapping these dead branches, and I start throwing them at him. He's like 20 yards away, and I'm landing these sticks like all around him. And he's just like, I don't care. What is going on? So then
Yeah.
finally, I'm like, Jude, I'm getting down, and I'm gonna scare this bear away. Like I always scare bears away. You try to, right? When you're hunting. And
Yeah.
so I start climbing down the ladder, and I'm like making noise. I'm waving my hands on purpose. And he like doesn't care. And I get on the ground and I snap this branch, and he looks at me, and I chuck it at him. And he just like, he takes off, and I'm like, good, done. So I climb back up. Well, he comes right back.
Oh
And I'm
my
like,
God.
you gotta be kidding. 4 times I got down and threw stuff at him until finally I connected one on him, and then he
You
took
did?
off. Oh yeah,
Oh,
and he took off, and he didn't come back.
you probably got the message after that.
Oh yeah, he tore off.
Yeah, my dad just shoots them with squirrel shot around
Yeah,
there. They're so annoying.
yeah. I've done that a ton growing up. I just didn't have one with
Yeah,
me, so I just took the tip off and just zipped him in the butt.
that's smart.
Like, what the heck?
Those little bears too are so dumb.
They are. Like, I'm on the ground with this thing, like 15 yards away, and I'm like, hey, get out of here.
So dumb.
He doesn't care.
That's funny.
There's Shane.
What movie were we watching? That's the real question. What did we pull you away from?
Cardboard Boxer or something like that. It's an old movie. I find movies on TikTok. When you scroll on TikTok and it starts showing scenes, I think they pay, like the production company or something pays to have these little TikTok reels, put out in just a little segment that
Probably.
some of the good parts. And I don't know, I
Yeah.
saw it earlier today and it looked intriguing, so I started watching it. It's a little slow going, but it's okay.
Wasn't that hard of an interruption, is what you're saying?
No, I mean it was an interesting movie, but it's yeah. I guess I'll find out here.
You already saw the best part on TikTok, apparently.
Yeah, probably so.
That's good, man. All right, help me connect the dots a little bit. You live in Woodbury.
No,
but
White Bear Lake.
Nice. And where are you from originally?
I'm from South Carolina, Rock Hill, South Carolina, actually.
Nice. That explains the not so White Bear Lake accent.
If you need
nice one on camera, dude. Did I send you that one?
No, that's sweet.
See if I can find it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Looks just like a solid 8. It's wide. Good frame 8. 2 a.m.
Yeah, right.
Maybe
remember
this week.
Remember, the cameras don't tell the whole story.
It's true. So there's probably a 180 behind him. Is that what I?
Yeah, that's what you're missing.
I feel like I don't quite like wait to see him on camera to go out like Derek was describing. I feel like I still kind of play the weather more than in the camera.
Yeah. I still don't have a buck that I would shoot on camera yet, which is a little frustrating, but it's okay. Probably this week. Something will happen this week.
Yeah, and you can't expect in our neck of the woods. I mean, it's a lot to expect. Consistent, super nice deer. Gonna have some down.
I
actually just watched a hunt he filmed in Nebraska 2 years ago. Pretty sweet one. I was folding laundry today.
That's what I do when I fold laundry. I throw on YouTube and watch hunting, typically.
It's what you do.
It is. Absolutely.
All right, how's that?
Great.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, that's my Insta360 Ace Pro shoots an 8K, but it doubles as a webcam, so it makes the video quality look a lot better.
There you go. Love it, dude. Good. You got any questions for us before we jump in?
No, I'm assuming we're talking about tracking.
Yeah, man. We can go wherever, but tracking is the primary thing.
Yep.
JD, I now know why I didn't remember your name, because your name is, when you put it on the app, was something else, wasn't it?
I think I forgot an N. It was on the app. It's like JD Larso or something like that. I forgot the N on my last name. So
yep.
And then Jordan was the one who was the hunter.
Yeah.
That you recovered from.
Yep. Hold on a second. The dogs. Callie was whining to come into the office. She likes to sleep under the bed, and Jasper, my boykin, is chasing around, humping her, trying to hump her, even though she's fixed. He's not, and that's all he can think about is every time she goes out to use the bathroom, he wants to smell where she peed, and he wants Jasper, out of here.
Go.
Get out of here.
Nice.
What is it with the word swacker?
I don't know. I don't know. It's they spell it weird. It's like S.
I'm talking about he just cut out as soon as I said swacker again.
Yeah. He's like
SWACKER. I get enough of this cold tea in my throat, it'll soothe it.
Is it sweet tea?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I have some connections with East Tennessee. My mom is from that area, and she loves her sweet tea.
Yeah, Mickey D's sweet tea is about the closest thing to Southern sweet tea you'll find.
Mickey B's or
Mickey D's, McDonald's sweet tea.
Yeah, she said the same. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing in the stores, nothing that any restaurant serves that tastes like Southern sweet tea, except for McDonald's. Is pretty close.
Does Chick-fil-A have sweet tea?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if the ones up here do.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
If it's down south, it does. But it's like, I was at Cub the other day. You know what Cub is? The grocery store chain?
Yep.
I went to the deli section. I get surprised every once in a while up here in Minnesota. They had fried okra there one time. I'm like, I can't believe this. They got fried okra. So I got some. Anyway, I went to the deli and I saw a bunch of different chicken products there. And I was like, is that chicken livers or chicken gizzards? And lady behind the counter, she's like, no. We don't sell those here. And I was like, oh, that's a shame. And I said, I'd buy every one of them if you had it. And she's like, where are you from? And I was like, I said, South Carolina. She's like, where are you from? She knew I was from somewhere else originally. I said, South Carolina. She said, I knew you weren't from around here. Asked for no chicken gizzards. She's like, I wish they would get some too. Because apparently she was from down south originally too. And she's like, because I love chicken gizzards. But it was nice talking to my people.
We're just going to have to keep going here. I don't know what happened to Johnny. He'll probably pop back on. But well, that's great. Anything else that you want to? There he is.
I don't know what's going on, but
yeah, every time we say the word swacker, I'd said it again. Swacker. You said I'm the second one. Was I the first person you used or the second person on the app you used? You said you've submitted 2 requests on the app?
On 2. Yeah, one was in 2023 for that guy right there.
Oh, I can't see him. Your camera screen is too small.
Oh,
so that was on the TRAKR app?
Yep. And we didn't find it, but the landowner or the neighbor to the south found it like 30 yards from where I shot it. So it did a big loop.
Who was your tracker? Was it me?
No, it was not you.
Well,
he was great, man.
We have two. Yeah, he's a great tracker. He's a high recovery rate. Yeah.
It was great. It was a really poor hit. I think I hit it in the neck, actually.
Hey there, thanks for watching this video. I'm JD, founder and crew member of the Huntxp team. We're so grateful that you took time to watch this video, and hopefully it's helping you level up your hunting game. That's what we and our community is all about, and we want to invite you into this growing community of hunters. It's all about leveling up each other's hunting game. So the first thing you can do is like and subscribe, but even more than that, we got some fun things going on over at our website, huntxp.com. We'd love for you to join our community there and stay connected with what we're doing, what we're working on, and we'd love to hear about what you're after. So thank you for watching this video. We'll see you next time.